pharmaceutical lobbyists outnumber legislators in Charleston every year. And, something different's got to happen. There's just, I use the example of how corruption has impacted the industry that I work in, without going into other industries.
You're a candidate who won tonight, correct?
Yeah, I'm running unopposed, so hopefully I won.
Tough match. You won unopposed. You're also, you said, in a relationship with Paula?
Yeah, we've been dating for, I don't know, about 9 months now. Okay. I mean, I've known her for several years, and it just, things happened.
So, kind of talk to me, because you, I believe, run a program for long-term recovery from addiction.
Yes.
You were talking earlier about your own long-term recovery with addiction. I mean, this is literally my first time in West Virginia, but I've heard and I've read the horror stories. You know, it's striking. I just spoke with someone who said, like, her whole block next to a coal mining plant has cancer. And I thought, Joe Manchin has taken over $700,000 from the coal industry. There are politicians that know people are dying, but they're choosing to kind of look the other way. Can you kind of talk about what's so unique about Paula, and also how much further West Virginia needs to come?
We still have a ways to go. Hopefully this will be a really strong push to that pendulum, because I think the pendulum's going to swing back that way. And Paula's been a huge help to just point that out. Again, it's like the Wizard of Oz, and she's pulled the curtain back so we can see who's pulling the lever. And she's been unafraid in talking about that. A lot of people in politics, think, well, maybe I'll need this person's support later, so I'm not really going to throw them under the bus now. And she has had absolutely no trepidation about throwing people under the bus for where their money comes from. She's spent a lot of time with people from Wolfpack talking about overturning Citizens United. I think no matter what happens here tonight, we're looking at least a minimum of 30% for somebody who had an opponent who had 3 decades in office.
And over $5 million.
Right, and over $5 million to work with. And, she was just under $300,000 to work with, was unknown a year ago in West Virginia. She was just a single mom going to work, doing bookkeeping. And, she's elevated herself, but I think even more importantly, there are a whole host of people across this state who she has helped elevate. Every time the spotlight's been on her, when cameras were on her, when reporters were following her around, she shared that as broadly as she could. And, a lot of those people look like they're winning tonight. And, so I think this is just the beginning. We're not sure where this will go next, but it'll go somewhere. I mean, this is nowhere near the end. This is just the beginning. Like I said, I've thought for a long time, the pendulum will eventually swing back, and I thought it would be a gradual swing back. I think it just got shoved back.
Can you kind of talk about, as whatever you're comfortable sharing, but I mean, you're someone who struggled with addiction. I'm sure you have friends who have been addicted to opioids here. It seems like everyone I talk to, somebody has died in their life. Can you kind of talk about your personal story and what people need to know about what's happening here?
Sure. A personal story is that after 20 plus years of active addiction and a kind of my own personal boom and bust cycle, because when I'm not using, I return back to being a normal person, and I can do exceptional things. And I've had some really good jobs. Jobs where I was able to fly under the radar. Nobody said that guy uses drugs, because I didn't look like it. I made sure I hid that. For a long time, I wore my blue pinstripe suits and black wingtips to work every day, and managed to hide what I was doing. I look a lot more like a drug addict now than I did then. And eventually I just got tired. My dad used to always ask, after I got clean, he would ask, well, what made the difference? He was under the impression it had to be some traumatic event that happened that caused me to stop using. And I just gone through this cycle of building up my life and getting all the things back that we all care about, and appearing relatively normal. But for me, when I quit using is when I feel abnormal inside. I may appear normal to the rest of the world, but to me, I felt terrible. But when I was using, I felt great, even though I looked like a train wreck to the rest of the world. So I would go through these cycles where life would be good, and I'd get my life back together from outside appearances, and then I would just pull the rug out from underneath myself because I couldn't keep from using again. And I see that with a lot of other people. It's phenomenal how pervasive it's gotten here, especially over the last 10 years. I got clean about 12 years ago, and in the little community where I live, if you asked somebody where to get heroin, they would have looked at you like you had two heads. And now there's teenagers who are IV drug users in that town. And it's pretty rare for me, with having 10 or 12 years of working in the field now, for me to go a whole week without somebody that I know, somebody I've met, somebody who's crossed my path dying. And that's why I do what I do, because all those deaths are preventable.
And what I think is so important for people to understand is, this opioid use, a lot of it's connected to joblessness, depression, economic desperation. It's not like people just wake up one morning and be like, I want to take opioids. People are looking for comfort, or they grow dependent. We see this in a lot of economically struggling areas.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Trauma there's a higher correlation between trauma and addiction than there is between obesity and diabetes, especially childhood trauma. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That sense of hopelessness and helplessness and desperation that occurs with a life in poverty creates a lot of emotional trauma, creates a lot of emotional pain, and then people, no matter what their path to using for the first time is, a lot of times it's legitimate prescriptions. There's an injury at work, or that opiates don't just kill physical pain, they kill emotional pain. And all that uncomfortableness and all that, not fitting in, all the feelings that come with, being somebody who had a relatively high-paying job for a while, whether it was in coal mines or gas and oil industry, which is also boom and bust, and then you lose that and you can't take care of your family. That creates a lot of emotional pain for people. And when they find out that opiates takes that away, the cycle's on. And a lot of them don't even realize that that's the cycle they're in. But it is. But I also think that we need to be careful. I think that our use of the term opioid epidemic has been crafted by the pharmaceutical industry, because that's the only drug that we have a pharmaceutical solution for. And as long as we can focus on the opioid problem, we're not going to look at the core problem with addictions. What we really have is an addiction epidemic. Personally, I know in my area that pendulum's swinging, and we're going back away from opiates. We're going back toward meth. And as long as we focus on whatever the drug du jour is, what we're essentially doing is playing a big giant game of whack-a-mole. It's heroin, it's pills, it's meth, it's Xanax, and we're not treating the underlying problem.
My last question for you, how long would it take me to grow that badass fucking beard you have? Or goatee, or whatever the hell it is. I've been shaving lately, but I desperately want to grow like a signature thing like that, and I just don't know.
I think it took me about a year and a half. Oh. I've had it for longer than that. It never seems to get any longer. Might be part of the aging process. Actually, when I started to run, I had friends like, it's going to have to go, right, because it looks unprofessional and you're going to have to do something with it. So what I did was I took advantage of it. And on my website at work, we had a former resident who was an amazing artist. And for our regular contact page, contact this coach or that coach or the director, he had characters that he did of all of us, and mine had my beard. So I lifted that off of our website and started using that on my campaign stuff for my bumper stickers. And because people were telling me how to get rid of it, I just made that a part of my campaign. So I'm the guy with the beard.
Tell people what you're running for and where they could find out more information.
I'm running for West Virginia House of Delegates in the 45th District. My website is Kerner4wvhouse.com.
Spell that.
KERNER 4WVHouse.com. And I'm also on Facebook. I think it's also Kerner 4WV House.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. There you have it.